There is an ancient Hebrew story about two brothers whose names were Cain and Abel. Now, this story is maybe not quite as famous and quite as well known as Adam and Eve, but it is pretty high up there. I still feel like it is pretty notorious. You can let me know in the comments if you are familiar with the story of these two brothers that we know as Cain and Abel. Now, I'm bringing up this story for a couple reasons, and there's actually a spiritual principle that I want us to unpack here in a second. But whether you realized this or not, the story of Cain and Abel, besides just being an old story, a brother story, a violent story, etc., it is many things. But did you know Cain and Abel is actually technically a tithing story? See, in this ancient story, as it is told, these two brothers both bring an offering. And one of them gets blessed, and one of them does not. We are told Abel brings a tithe. Abel brings an offering that is the first and the best of his increase. Cain, who is the other brother, we are told, essentially brings leftovers. Not the first or the best, but rather the worst. The part nobody wanted. The leftovers. He essentially brings something as an afterthought. And as the story goes, we are told that Abel, who brought the tithe, gets blessing and goodness and favor in his life, while Cain, the other brother, who brought the leftovers, does not. And again, I don't know if you realized that this was technically a tithing story, but do you see what I mean that it really is? One brother decides to tithe and gets blessed. One brother decides not to tithe and then feels left out on the blessing. And so Cain, the brother who did not tithe and then ends up feeling left out on the blessing, gets angry. And I'm going to try to say this in a YouTube-friendly way, but Cain gets so angry, gets so envious, gets so jealous, he ends up taking the life of his brother Abel. Are you following me? With me saying it delicately, he ends up unaliving his brother Abel, we could say. But while this is a famous story, there's something so significant here. And again, a principle that goes well beyond tithing and well beyond money that I want every single person to hear today. So Cain gets upset because he sees his brother prospering. He sees his brother being blessed. He sees his brother that appears to be getting all kinds of favor. And he gets angry, and he gets jealous, and he says, God, this isn't fair. Why does he get all of the good stuff and not me? Why is he getting blessed in this way and not me? Why is all this amazing stuff happening for him and not me? Have you ever felt like that? Have you ever felt like there was somebody in your world who was jealous of you, perhaps, in that way? Makes me think of the Taylor Swift lyric where she says, with a lot of self-awareness, I've been the archer and I've been the prey. And I was so proud of her for that lyric and so proud of her self-awareness, because how often is it true that we've been both? Nobody is 100% a hero. Nobody is 100% a villain. Maybe we've all both been the archer and the prey, and I am willing to bet we've all been on both sides of that dynamic before. We've been the person who, even if we didn't want to be, we felt jealous of somebody else's life and somebody else's success and somebody else's blessing. I will raise my hand first and say, I have been there. But if we're honest, we could all also admit that we've probably been in the other position as well, where somebody was jealous of us. Somebody resented us for our success. Somebody was uncomfortable with, or even explicitly opposed to the goodness that we seem to be receiving. Maybe we can relate to both of these positions in different ways, but I find it so striking here because Cain gets angry, Cain gets envious, Cain gets jealous, and yet in this ancient classic story that has survived in multiple religious traditions for thousands and thousands of years, God responds to him and says, "Why are you angry?" Essentially, why are you so upset? Why are you envious? Why are you jealous? Why did this trigger you so much? Is the same result not also available to you? Now, this is already, as I said, the longest, most extensive episode I've ever done. So I don't want to go on too long of a tangent here, and I don't want to take up too much time. But before we dive more fully into this final idea, number 8, before we talk specific to money, before we talk specific to tithing, I just want us all to take a moment with this spiritual principle, because I believe the principle in this story could be applied to so many things, to so many desires and dreams we have, to so many areas of life. And how often in life do we get jealous or triggered or angry, when actually what we should be doing is getting curious and beginning to learn? How often do we see somebody who has something we want, who has something that is a desire of our heart, who has something that we believe is supposed to be a part of our vision, and we get jealous and we get triggered and we get mad at God that life isn't fair, and why do they get that, and why not me? What's wrong with me? Why don't I get to have it? And I believe this message really is being spoken to us in all kinds of ways, with all kinds of applications today, that God might be asking you in this moment, why are you angry? There is no need to feel left out. There is no need to feel afraid. There is no need to be that triggered. There is no need to get so jealous. There is no need to come to the conclusion that I am withholding from you. I believe God might be asking a lot of people today, why are you so angry? And let me know in the comments if this part is speaking to you. You can drop a number 8 for idea number 8 if this piece in particular is speaking to you, because I believe God is saying to somebody, hear me on this. I did not send that person into your life to trigger you. I did not send that into your life to taunt you. I did not send that person, that thing, that experience into your life just to make you feel bad about something that you do not get to have. God is saying to somebody today, I sent them as a demonstration of what is possible for you. And you are not meant to be getting jealous of them. You are meant to be learning from them and being inspired by them. And I really believe amidst all the other aha moments and ideas and shifts for people today, somebody is getting a breakthrough right here, right now, that I don't have to be jealous. I don't have to be envious anymore. I don't have to resent what that person in my life is demonstrating, because it is available for me too. And that is what I am meant to see and to realize and to know. But I bring this story up as we begin to explore idea number 8, because it really does illustrate for us that there is a specific thing that happens when people tithe. And we don't need to fully understand it. We don't need to question it. We don't need to get jealous of it. We are certainly not meant to come to the conclusion that maybe God is just playing favorites at random, or maybe somebody was always destined to be blessed while another person was always destined to be cursed. We don't need to do any of those things. But we can recognize there is a specific thing that happens when people tithe. And it is not random. It is not lucky. It is not coincidence. There is a spiritual logic to it. There is a metaphysical science to it. There is a divine guarantee backing this up. And it is available for anyone who wants to take advantage of it for themselves. Now, here is why idea number 8 is not only so crucial and vital and needed to be on this list, but here is why it belonged at the end, why it needs to be the grand finale today. As we've gone through all of these ideas, okay, you might be listening to me share each one of these in order and thinking, okay, I'm taking notes, I'm following, I'm with you, I'm learning something here. All of this makes sense to me. And you might be on board 100%. You might be in agreement with everything that you've heard today. And you might feel ready, Stefan, I'm going to implement every single one of these in my own life. And if that's you, by the way, I love that. I love that you're having that response to these life-changing ideas. But I also know, especially when this teaching comes to an end and the episode turns off, and you find yourself living in that tension of the truth that you have just heard, and any places, any ways in which it might feel like it contradicts your current reality, your current circumstances. What I know is that that can feel discouraging. It might end up, for a moment, feeling a little bit discouraging because it can't all be done overnight. And I just want to acknowledge here, if a part of you is looking at your notes and thinking through all of these ideas that we're talking about today, and you get it and it's clicking and you're on board, you're ready, you want to implement all of it, but you're also starting to wonder, okay, but how long is it going to take me to shift all of this? How long is it going to take me to put all of this into practice? How long is it going to take me to implement? I want to just tell the truth, and I want to just acknowledge here, it might take some time to adjust. A lot of people listening and watching today have years, if not decades, multiple decades worth of experience modeling something else, believing something else, practicing something else, right? So I just want to acknowledge the reality that it may not be an overnight shift in every single one of these areas and ideas. It might take some time to make the shift, to integrate, to get used to the new way of being. And I won't deny that. I won't dispute that. But the reason we're ending here with idea number 8 is there is one hack that speeds up time to instantly get things working in your favor. And I know that sounds melodramatic. I know that may sound cheesy. I know that might sound hokey, but it is true. There is a hack built into the universe by God to speed up time and to instantly get things working in your favor in this area beyond what your mind and your effort and your decisions alone can produce. And that is where tithing comes in. And before I continue in my notes here, I just feel led spontaneously to pause and say, for anybody who has been listening to this teaching, and you are struggling with some regret from the past, you are struggling with, even as you listen, wishing you could go back and make some choices differently, you are struggling with, as you take in this information, how do I not judge myself for why I didn't know this sooner and why I let myself live in these dysfunctional patterns that didn't serve me for so long? If that's you, I want you to know the best thing that you can do in this moment, especially in the interest of clearing all guilt, clearing all shame, clearing all judgment, clearing all condemnation, clearing any and all sense of regret. The best thing that you can do is get God involved in your life, in your equation, in your finances, because God can do what you don't know how to do. God can make happen in 6 months what you wouldn't know how to make happen in 6 years or 60 years. And God can do something in your finances when God is your source and God is your business partner and God is your ultimate money manager. God can do something in your finances that your mind and your best effort could never make happen alone. And I will tell you, I have personally practiced the very thing we're talking about in idea number 8 for 15 years and counting at the time of this recording. The ironic thing is, I put this idea last in the list for reasons that I've already shared, but ironically, this is actually the oldest money idea of them all for me. This is the one I started with. This one came first for me before I even fully understood all of the ideas that I've shared with you today. And I will tell you, when I first started practicing this, I didn't know all of the principles behind it. I didn't know why it worked fully. And yet, it was undeniable. It was impossible to ignore. I didn't understand how or why necessarily it worked, yet I couldn't deny that it did. I couldn't deny that it brought me to a perfect place to live right after I got kicked out of the house and had nowhere to go. I couldn't deny that it brought me funding and scholarships and all kinds of amazing gifts that I didn't have to do anything to earn. I just got to receive. I couldn't deny that it brought me an opportunity that I look back and would tell you was quite honestly my first ever quantum leap. Because suddenly, the amount of money that it would customarily take me a week or two to earn, I was suddenly making in a day, over and over and over again. So I may not have understood all of it, but I knew that it worked. And as I look back now with a heart full of gratitude on 15 years of evidence in my own life, as I think about 10 years of being in business, and as I think about specifically all of the different ideas that I have shared with you in this episode today that have changed my money world forever, it is clear to me tithing is the perfect gateway and the ultimate hack for every single one of these ideas that we've been discussing today. Now, just to define it a little bit and be super clear for anybody that is newer to this conversation and not as familiar. What are we talking about? What does this word even mean here if you're unfamiliar? Well, tithing is a spiritual practice where as soon as you receive, you give the first 10% to God through the vehicle of a place where you hear from God. A place that you consider a spiritual home, a place that nourishes your soul, that is a well that you draw from. That is what we are talking about when we talk about tithing. In simple terms, every time you receive, giving the first 10%. And by the way, I want to explain this. Some of you I know have heard this before. Some of you, this is brand new, but based on the ancient Hebrew numerology, they considered 10 to be the highest single number that existed in the entire universe. Everything higher, everything greater, everything beyond that was either a repeating number or a multiple. In other words, 11, they would say, is not a brand new number. 11 is just 10 plus 1. 20 is not a brand new number. It is just 10 plus 10. 100 is not a brand new number. It is just 10 times 10. And so 10 was the highest single number that ever existed. So according to this numerology, the 10% is a stand-in for the whole. What you do with the 10, you are doing for the 100. And the 10% becomes a stand-in for the entire thing, the wholeness, the 100%. That is why the number is significant. That is why there is a specific percentage to this principle that has endured across changing economies and inflation for thousands and thousands and thousands of years. But the percentage has not gone up with inflation in this principle because there's a reason it's 10. The 10 represents the whole. The 10 represents the 100. And so the principle is, as you tithe, with the first 10%, dedicating, surrendering, giving the first 10%. The principle says all 100% is being given to God on a spiritual level. All of it you choose to give. All of it you choose to trust. All of it is blessed and released and put into the hands of God, of infinite loving intelligence. You know, Erwin McManus, one of my favorite authors and speakers, says, tithing is a celebration. And I love that way of looking at it. I would personally say it is a celebration that is done with trust. And so tithing, in essence, means when I receive, the first thing I'm going to choose to do is to celebrate out of gratitude. To choose gratitude, to say thank you, to recognize God as my source. The first thing I'm going to do is to celebrate. And please don't miss this, family. Some of you listening don't want to do that because what you receive doesn't feel like enough to you. And even if a part of you maybe occasionally would consider it, You look at the number coming in any given moment, and you think to yourself, this isn't enough. This isn't near enough. This isn't what I need. This isn't what I wanted. This isn't anything significant. This isn't where I desire to be. You look at the number that comes in and you say, this isn't worth celebrating. And could I suggest to you with so much love, if that is your reaction, when something comes in, instead of celebration, instead of gratitude, instead of receiving it, if that is your reaction, could it be that that is actually part of the reason why you are stuck? Because if you won't celebrate now, and you won't do it here, in this area, even with a number that seems less than ideal to you, may I just ask you to consider, where else in your life is that happening? Where else in your life are you responding that way? Where else in your life are you withholding from yourself? Tithing is a celebration, and tithing is a powerful choice. Every time you do it, you are taking on God as your business partner and activating an eternal metaphysical reality in your finances. Maybe the best way that I can explain it is using a simple arrow. And so I want you to pause with me, not pause the episode, but just pause in consciousness and reflect with me for a moment on, if we were to put up on a chart, up on a chalkboard, or up on a marker board, something that represented you, and then something that represented money. I want you to see this in your mind's eye with me, and let's do this exercise together. If we were to create a visual, and we have you up on the chart represented in some way, and we have money up on the chart represented in some way, and then we were to put some sort of arrow, some sort of sign, some sort of marker to indicate what is happening there between the two, what that relationship looks like. I want you to just pause and ask yourself, what would I draw? As I see this in my mind's eye and I sit with it for a moment now, what do I see? What do I observe? What do I notice? What comes forward in my consciousness as I sit with it? I'm up here on the chart. Money is up here on the chart. And then in some way, shape, or form, I want to depict what I feel like is happening in my reality there. I want you to observe. What would your mind draw? Now, I think many people out there feel like if they were honest and they had to portray it in visual form and they were going to draw out this chart, I think what many people would say feels like their truth and their reality and their lived experience is that there seems to be a giant arrow pointing away from them and towards money. And that is the dominant reality in their life. That is the experience they have again and again and again. If that resonates with you, feel free to give me a 12 in the comments. Because what I think a lot of people feel like is that there is this giant arrow always pointing away from them when it comes to money. No matter where they work, no matter what they do for a living, no matter what they try, no matter how much effort they put into it, no matter what they invest in, I could go on and on, the list could go on and on, but I think many people feel like no matter what, the arrow is always pointing away from them when it comes to money. And that in the end, there's always something that they end up having to pay. There's always another bill or an unexpected expense. Always something taking the money they worked for away. Always somehow more money going out than they planned on. That as soon as it comes in, it goes right back out. And again, I'm not going to embarrass you whatsoever, but feel free to just low-key, subtly give me a 12 in the comments if you want to let me know, Stefan, it feels like you're describing my life. It feels like you're describing my reality. Because I really think a lot of people feel this way, that there's an arrow between them and money, but it's pointing the wrong way. And no matter what they do, there's somehow always more money leaving than anything else. And what if I told you today, can I suggest to you today, that it doesn't have to be that way, that it wasn't meant to be that way, that is not God's will, God's plan, God's highest and best for you. And I pray that I've made that clear. I pray that I've shared a whole lot of principles that back me up on that all throughout the course of this episode today. But may I just share, when we talk about in idea number 8, why tithing is the ultimate hack and the fastest way to change your life in this area. Here's how I understand it. And here's my testimony. Here's what I have experienced in my own life. Tithing instantly flips the arrow around. Not over time and 10 years down the road and by the time you retire, etc. But no. This is my story, my truth, my testimony. This is what I have lived. This is what I have experienced. Tithing flips the arrow in your life. And the moment you say yes, the moment you choose to believe and receive and activate this divine invitation, the moment you choose to step through this portal, it immediately begins to happen. And tithing flips the arrow in your world. And yes, we understand, and I acknowledge that feeling the effects of the arrow being flipped is something that you will see and experience and be able to celebrate more and more and more as time goes on and the process unfolds. And I'm not suggesting that the second you tithe for the first time, your car is going to evolve right away in your garage magically, like a Pokemon, like a Transformer. Okay, we understand that, but I really do see it this way, and I really do believe this literally happens, that the moment you take God up on this divine invitation where it says, test me in this, that the arrow is flipped in your life when it comes to money. And from that moment forward, from that day forward, for you as a tither, the arrow of money and wealth and prosperity is now permanently pointed in your direction. And here's what's such good news about this, okay? And this is why I said, for anybody with regret, for anybody who feels like they've messed it up too badly or are too far gone, for anybody who feels like, Stefan, maybe I'm just not good at money, please hear this. This is the good news. You don't have to get everything right for that arrow to still be pointed in your way. You don't have to be great with money for that arrow to still be pointed in your way. You don't have to be perfect for that arrow to still be pointed in your way. You don't have to be the best at sales for that arrow to still be pointed in your way. I could go on and on and on. But it is really good news, and good news rooted in grace, that you can trust, that you can relax, that you can breathe easy when you know permanently and unconditionally from this day forward, that arrow is pointed in my direction. And no matter what I do, more money comes in. No matter what I do, more money finds its way to me. No matter what I do, I can't help but prosper and increase. That has truly been my story and my experience, and that is what it feels like when the arrow flips and you know the arrow is permanently pointed in your direction. And one of my favorite testimonies of this actually happened within our community and was shared with me very recently. So I want to share it with you here. There was a partner who got laid off from their job. And obviously, that's not the good part. It was unexpected, and as you can imagine, a bit unsettling for them when it happened. Although I will say, to their credit, and it feels important to share here, I still very vividly remember them messaging me at that time and even getting some unexpected and we could say certainly undesirable news. They had a peace and they had a trust and they had an inner knowing that everything was going to be okay. And that is priceless. That changes the way you experience anything. And all of that goes back to idea number one, that when you begin from God as the source, you know that all is well. When you begin from God as the source, you know that everything is going to be okay. But I bring this up because this happened about 6 months ago, that they got the news that they were losing this job and getting laid off. Not by any fault of their own, but simply due to external conditions beyond their control. Now, fast forward 6 months down the road to just a few days ago. And this individual, this partner, you know who you are, shout out, I love you. They messaged me and said, Stefan, the wildest thing happened. And I realized this the other day, and I had to share it with you. They said, as you know, I got laid off, which meant a significant loss at the time of money and funds and revenue that we didn't know how it was going to be replaced or where it was going to come from. And they said, but it's crazy because we just added up the numbers and looked at all of it from the time I got laid off through the end of the year. And somehow I have been receiving, I have been bringing in more money without that job than I used to bring in with that job. And I don't even know how that all happened, because it wasn't like this one went away and there was immediately a new one and immediately a replacement. But they shared with me, God is the source. And clearly, family, they had a belief that they didn't have to be in lack, that it didn't have to go down, that they didn't have to suffer. And their testimony was, God is the source, and God has been providing for me. And somehow, even after losing the job, I have ended up with more money in the end than I would have had with the job, not less. That is the story of God knowing how to provide. That is the story of a tither and a tithing family. That is the story of what it looks like and what it feels like when the arrow is always pointed in your direction, no matter what, no matter what, no matter what. And so, I said at the very beginning, so often, it's not that we need to think more positively, but we actually need to think differently. I pray that even as I share this idea number 8, you are starting to get a fuller understanding of how I think about tithing in a way that really is different from so much of what is out there, from probably so many people and so many of the assumptions out there. From my experience, many people think about tithing as something that people would only do because they are religious, or because they feel obligated to, or are following a rule, or because they are worried that something bad will happen if they don't. And to me, it is none of those things. Let me be very clear here. I am not worried about being under any curse ever. What God has blessed, no one can curse. And I am a child of God unconditionally. I am blessed unconditionally. I am loved to a maximum degree with a perfect connection to God unconditionally. So just to be clear, it is none of those things for me, and I am not worried about being under any curse. But I am committed to say yes to every opportunity, every possibility, every vehicle, every avenue for abundance, every blessing that God has for me. What I am not going to do is pull a Cain move, where I think that blessing is only for certain people, special people, for somebody else, but not for me. What I'm not going to do is exclude myself from the good. What I'm not going to do is miss my chance to tap into something that is available to every person who wants it. And so to me, this really is how I view it. Tithing is the easiest possible gateway, the easiest possible pathway, the easiest possible life hack to all the blessing that has my name on it. And just to really drive home this point, I want to read you a list that summarizes based on all of the ideas today, because I believe tithing connects to every single one of these that we have talked about today. Tithing makes God your source. Tithing claims the blessing over your finances, that you are empowered to prosper no matter what. And because you trusted from the very beginning, whatever you do will succeed. Tithing helps you walk in your power fully, while also fully standing in the grace that it doesn't all depend upon you to get it right. Tithing teaches you that when money comes in, you choose what happens with it. You don't just see where it disappears on its own. Tithing is always an investment decision, because it is impossible for you to sow and not reap. You are continually making your future better and brighter every single time you tithe. You are continually sowing into your future self, and your future wealth. Tithing is always a decision that your future self is grateful for, because you can't outgive God. And as you give consistently, your life just expands and expands and expands. Tithing is such a responsible decision and a choice of good stewardship, because you are investing into something that will most certainly increase, and even has the divine potential and promise of 100-fold return. Tithing, let me just read a few more from my notes connected to these core ideas today. Tithing is a direct pathway to overflow, because the divine promise says, test it out for yourself and know with certainty that on the other side of it is overflowing blessing in all areas of life. Tithing reinforces that you always have more than enough. And it continually proves to you that God can do more with your 90% than you can do with 100%, always leaving you with leftover and more on the way. Tithing is doing your part and leaving the rest up to God, which is why throughout history, so many tithers have been guided to brilliant business ideas and strategies and investments and inventions. A tither will always be guided to the right vehicle for their life in any season. Just a couple more here. Tithing authorizes divine protection and compensation on your behalf, canceling out anything that would sabotage your life, clearing all the things that could block your financial flow in any way. I want you to claim every single one of these for yourself if you are a tither. Two more. Tithing immediately brings you into inner safety and security in this area inside and out. Because when your money is in the hands of God, when you know that God is your business partner and you cannot outgive God and God cannot lie, of course you are in good hands. Last but not least, tithing is a gift to your inner child because it allows God to be the perfect parent and the heavenly Father on the invisible level that takes care of you, where you are not solely responsible to meet your own needs, but God takes care of you. And at the deepest level, that trust is a gift to your inner child and your adult self both. The best way I can say it, to wrap it all up, bring it all full circle, the best way that I can say it on idea number 8 is this. Tithing is the only instantaneous way to upgrade your money world. Instantly, in a single moment across all space and time, regardless of your past, regardless of your childhood or conditioning, regardless of the decisions that you have made thus far in your life, and the residue of those things and whatever else may be happening at cause and effect, regardless of all of that, tithing is the only instantaneous way to upgrade your money world in a single choice. So here's what I would like to do. In just a moment, we are going to pray together. And if you've ever listened to one of my teachings before, you know this is often the very best part of the entire episode. And so I am going to lead us through that in just a moment. We're going to end this with a powerful affirmative prayer. And I will be praying that this moment is the one that shifts your money world forever. That you look back on as a turning point, that you look back on for the rest of your life and say, something began to change, and I trace it all back there. We're going to pray in just a few moments, but before we do that, I want to give anybody and everybody who resonates the opportunity to tithe right here, right now. I'm talking about putting this into motion, putting this into practice, putting this into immediate implementation and action right here and now. Because as we've been talking about over these last few moments, while it is true that you may not be able to instantly adjust every single area of your life immediately to match all of these ideas all at once, I do want to make sure that you feel empowered and supported and transformed by the time this episode comes to an end. Knowing beyond a shadow of a doubt that you have crossed a line, knowing that you are in a new season and it is permanent. And this is something that you can immediately say yes to and set into motion. No delay, no hesitation, no time required whatsoever. As you heard me teach earlier, my goal for you, my heart for you is not that you would claim the truth that God is my source, but then end up in a powerless, helpless, victim kind of place, feeling like, well, Stefan, all I can do is wait and hope for a miracle and hope something amazing happens. I want you in your power. I want you leaving here empowered. I want you to know, starting right here and right now, but also continually and ongoing, that the arrow of money is permanently turned towards you in your favor and in your direction. So, whether it is simply your next time doing it because you are already a tither and you already practice this, whether it is your first time doing it in a very long time, or maybe even if it is your first time ever to actually tithe, no matter where you fall there, I thought we would do something special today at the end of my most extensive episode ever. I thought we would do something special in a unique way that we haven't done before, and actually in real time, tithe together. By the way, I am doing it with you. On my end, in real time, even as I record, I am pausing my recording and going through these steps in real time alongside of you. So this is a collective moment, joining together in agreement for us to share. And as many of you know, I share all of my content, all of my show, all of these teachings for free. They are only made possible because of my partners, an incredible and generous group of people all around the world who believe in my work and choose to support it. Normally, I would give a thank you and a partner shout out like I'm doing here and simply speak to all the ways that people could give, talk about giving for a moment in general. But again, it's going to be a little bit different today. I'm not so focused necessarily on someone giving one time or someone becoming a partner. Specifically today, in the spirit of idea number 8, this is what I felt led to do. For us to take a moment and tithe together in real time, knowing some of you are doing it with a greater meaning than ever before. Some of you are doing it for the first time in a long time. Some of you are doing it for the first time ever. And that is amazing. That lights me up. Now, let me be very clear. This is not the only place you can tithe. Of course, I feel like that's obvious, but I want to say it anyway. There are many places out there doing exceptional, extraordinary work that would joyfully receive your giving as well. So let me be clear. This is not the only place you can tithe. But I will say, and I will own unapologetically, this is a wonderful place to tithe, a spectacular place to tithe, a one-of-a-kind, unique, powerful place to tithe. And I will tell you unapologetically, especially after what I've seen in this partner community over the past couple years, this is such good ground. And so if this message is speaking to you, and this is a spiritual well that you draw from, you are certainly invited to tithe here. And even though I've never done it quite like this before, as we conclude the 8 ideas that have changed my money world today, and before we do an epic prayer together, this is what I felt led to invite you into and how I felt led to do it. So, first and foremost, I want to invite you, pause this episode if you need to, and figure out what is the latest amount that you got paid. Figure out the number that we will be using for tithing purposes today. And I'll let you determine what you want to count for this. I'll let you figure this out for yourself. It could be a paycheck. It could be an invoice that came in. The total of revenue received, perhaps on a payment processor. It could be profit from a business or gains on an investment or really anything else, whatever applies to you. This can be personal, this can be professional. You can tithe for yourself or you can do it from your business. All of that is up to you, and I will trust you and trust God to guide you as you feel into this. But I really do want to encourage every single person who is still with me and listening right now, and I'm going to do it on my end. You're not going to hear the pause, but I am quite literally going to take a break from recording. And for myself, since I practice this daily, I'm going to look at the amount that has come in since I last gave yesterday and get that number. So I will pause, you take a pause, get the number, and meet me back here. Okay, welcome back. I took a second to get the number for myself, and I know you have hopefully paused this episode and done the same, and you have your number. And now we're going to do a very simple calculation. I just used the built-in calculator through the search bar on my MacBook, if you want to know the exact details. But we're going to do a very simple calculation and calculate 10% of that number. And I will just share here, especially for my partners, full transparency, my giving percentage when it comes to all that you sow into this work is actually, as many of you know, higher than 10%. And as of right now in this season, at the time of this recording, I actually give 22.2%. I know that's very specific, but I love my repeating numbers, and that's what I feel called to do. So just for full context, especially for my partners, when it comes to your giving and the way that I continue the circulation, I actually give 22.2% every time. But I'm not asking you to do 22% today. We're talking about the foundational point of 10%, where you claim this principle and promise and divine guarantee for yourself, and you cross a line, and something profound begins to happen here. So right where you are, with that number that you found, I want you to calculate 10% of that number. And now we're going to tithe together. Right where you are, there is a website you can access. And just to be clear, I am not giving this to myself. Okay, that's not how I practice giving, just to be very explicit about that. I am giving to an organization that I believe in, that has nourished me, that has been there for me, that is a well that I draw from and that I know to be good ground I can sow into. But in this moment, I want to invite you. There is a website, lovegrovepartners.com, and all of the ways to give are there. We have a lot of different options for you. You can pick whatever is the easiest and the most convenient for you. And I want to invite you to give that 10% based on what you have received in this moment as a celebration, as an act of trust, and with tons of expectation in your heart. I'm going to try not to go on a tangent here, but you all know I'm passionate about this. There is a school of thought out there that makes it sound like it is unspiritual to expect something, as if the ultimate, the ideal, the most spiritual thing we could do is to have zero faith, zero expectation for anything from God. And I just believe that goes in the face of so many principles and so many truths and so many promises. And it has been said for a reason: give, and it will be given to you, pressed down, shaken together, running over to make room for more. God is the one who said, test me in this. God is the one who said, I will pour out overflow into every area of your life. God is the one who said, as you sow, you will most certainly reap. So I want to invite you to give that 10%, not even to me, but at the deepest level, to give it to God, to give it out of trust, to give it out of gratitude, to give it out of expectation, to give it as a spiritual practice, doing so with so much expectation in your heart. And since we know that this is a seed going into good grounds, I want to give you a moment to set an intention here. As you've heard me say before, a farmer would never just throw random seeds into the soil, not thinking about or checking or looking to see what they were. No, we know they would always plant with intention, with purpose, with vision of the desired harvest to come. And so I want to give you a moment to set an intention here to give your seed an assignment in many of the options that are available for you to give at lovegrovepartners.com. There is a section, and anywhere that we are able to, we have labeled that section. Share what you are believing for, because I always want you to be able to do that. I always want you to have the opportunity to share it with me, and I love to read those when they come in. So take a second, if you would like, and especially if you're giving on a platform where you have that option, give your seed an assignment. And as you think about, as you reflect on what you would like to put there, I want to offer some suggestions. They're certainly not required. They're certainly not some magic formula or secret code words or something, okay? But I felt led in this special episode, in this special moment, to give you some suggestions to consider in the spirit of this next step that people all over the world are taking today. So here are some things to consider for that section. From this day forward, I am a tither. From this day forward, God is my source, no matter what. Perhaps you'd like to make that your declaration as you tithe in this moment. From this day forward, I never have to worry about money ever again. From this day forward, I am always provided for. From this day forward, The blessing is on me and on my finances. You can feel into these, see if anything stands out, see if anything specifically resonates with you. From this day forward, whatever I do prospers, and whatever has to happen, happens for money to flow to me. I love that one in particular. And then last suggestion here you can feel into, from this day forward, the arrow of prosperity is permanently pointed towards me, and money is continually flowing in my direction. So those are my suggestions. But there's no right answer here. I just want you to use your faith and to open up to whatever intention comes through for you in this moment, giving your seed an assignment. But again, please, 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 whatever you choose, share it with me. I want to read it and to be able to be in agreement with you. The most powerful thing in the world is an agreement. And across all space and time, I stand in agreement with you. And I'm going to type out my intention and make my gift and do my own daily tithing practice here. And then I'm going to meet you back here when I'm done and you're done, because I want to speak a blessing over your tithing in this moment as we go into this prayer together. And I'm actually going to let the music play here for a moment so that we can just breathe this in and stay in this frequency and do this practice together. Okay, my giving is complete. My seed has gone into the soil, and my faith has been released, and I trust that yours has as well. And we're just about to go into our final prayer, but since this is such a sacred, one-of-a-kind moment with people in this community tithing together, some for the first time in a long time, some for the first time ever, all around the world, I want to walk us through something and just affirm something over you and speak a blessing over you as we get ready to officially pray here. You know, I shared a number of ideas today that have all changed my money worlds forever. And when we got to idea number 8, I shared with you that this one really ties them all together. And this one really came first in my journey and went on to unlock all the others. And this one I really see as the ultimate hack and the fast track to experiencing all of these ideas and all of these truths for yourself. And so now that we have all tithed in real time, I want to walk you through once more every one of these ideas, specifically making the connection to how you and I can step into each one of these through our simple spiritual practice that we just did. First and foremost, we are making the choice to decree and declare for ourselves right now that God is the source. We know that we are not responsible to be our own source, that the burden does not solely fall on us to meet our own needs. And so as we tithe today, we step into this awareness, this deep inner knowing immediately that we are not in it alone, that God is our source. And from this moment forward, we let God provide. We let God supply. We let God take the very best care of us. As you tithe today, I speak over you that you are stepping into this truth, that you have the power to generate wealth. Never again will you feel stuck in this area. Never again will you have to worry about money endlessly. Never again will you have to feel like a victim, feel hopeless, feel powerless when it comes to this area. As you tithe today, I decree and declare you make a shift into this knowing that you have the power to generate wealth, and you walk in that power all the days of your life. As you tithe today, and as you tithe anytime, I speak over you and your gift that this is always an investment decision into your future. You are sowing something into your future. You are creating a harvest, scheduling a harvest in your future. You are ensuring that there is flow, that there is abundance, that there is more than enough and more always on the way. I speak over you and over your tithing today that this act must create overflow by law and principle and divine guarantee. You cannot outgive God. You cannot outgive God. You cannot outgive God. And what you have given surely will return to you, bringing more with it. What you have given is never, ever, ever lost. It simply goes into your future where it multiplies. I speak over you today that because you are a tither, you are guided in this season to wherever your prosperity is, to the exact right vehicle for you. You never again have to feel FOMO in this area, like maybe you're missing out. You never again have to get lost in comparison or jealousy. You never again fall for the distraction of a shiny object that is not meant for you and has nothing to do with your purpose. But I speak over you today as a tither. You are guided to wherever your prosperity is, to the exact right vehicle for you. Breathe that in and claim it for yourself right now. I speak over you, and I invite you to join me in agreement around this truth as you tithe today, that anything that would stand in the way or sabotage your receiving is now cleared. It is done, it is done, it is done. The devourer has been rebuked for your sake on every level, conscious and subconscious, internal and external. There is nothing that can stop your good. There is nothing that can stop your destiny. There is nothing that can stop your prosperity. We breathe that in and choose to know that as fact right here and right now. And last but certainly not least, I speak over every person who has tithed with me, for each and every one of us today, that in this moment you have stepped into a deeper core level of safety and security inside and out than you've ever known before. Knowing that you can't outgive God, that you are always taken care of, and that God is your business partner and your infinite and unending provider on this journey always. I want you to feel all that is shifting in the invisible realm, that is in motion even though you can't see it. I want you to feel all that has been set into motion today. I want you to feel that arrow pointing in your direction now and always. And I felt led at the last minute. Wasn't planning on this, wasn't in my notes until right before I recorded this part today. But I felt led to share this as we all took a moment to do this spiritual practice together. You know, what you and I just did, and what we always have the opportunity to do as a celebration and an act of trust and a spiritual practice every time we receive, it is such a breakthrough because it's all connected to love. And I want to take a moment and explain this. In order to trust in this way, especially around this one often scary, often intense, often triggering area of life for people, there are certain things that are required. I have realized over the years, if you and I are going to trust enough to do this as a practice, as a commitment over and over and over again, the only way we would ever be willing to do that is if there are certain things we can trust, if there are certain things we actually choose to believe. What are those things? Well, to me, the only way we would be able to trust is if we knew for sure, or if we at least opened our heart to choose to believe. God loves me. God is with me. God is not against me. God is on my side. God wants to take care of me. Let me read that list again, and as the music plays, I just want you to hear it, breathe it in, open your heart, and maybe just observe what's happening for you in consciousness. Observe if anything comes up as you hear this list, that God loves you. God is with you to the fullest, right where you are. God is not against you. God is on your side, and God wants to take care of you. See, here's what I know. Surrendering anything to God is very, very scary if we deep down believe that maybe God is mad at us, that maybe God loves us out of obligation a little bit, but doesn't really like us, doesn't really enjoy us. That maybe God wants to punish us, that maybe God is trying to teach us a lesson through something really painful, that maybe God, in some weird way, is actually the mountain standing in our way, blocking us from our good. Do you see what I mean, family? That if that's what we believe, consciously or subconsciously, how could we let go? How could we ever release? How could we ever want to surrender? That would all feel so scary, like such a mistake. But you know what makes it easy? To relax, to trust, to let go, to surrender, to put it all into God's hands. What makes it all easy is if we really know and are convinced in our soul that God loves us, that God is with us, that God is not against us, that God is on our side, that God wants to take care of us. And actually, it is my truth and my testimony. Tithing has been a gateway for me to learn this and realize this and step into it more and more and more and more. So I now don't worry in the slightest that if I put this area into the hands of God, which temporarily looks like I have less, which temporarily looks like a risk I have to take, I don't worry in the slightest that it's going to be a mistake, or that I'm going to end up regretting it, or that what God has in store for me is lack and suffering and destruction, because I know how loved I am. I know beyond a shadow of a doubt that God loves to prosper me, that God's plans are never to harm me, but always for my good, for my highest and best, to give me a hope and a future. And so I'm excited and expectant always for what God has in store for me in this area. And spoiler alert, open secret, I don't even try to hide, family. This is what it has always been about for me at the deepest level. If someone was to listen to all of my teachings, but they were only allowed, for some bizarre reason, they were only permitted to walk away with one thing, with one truth, with one takeaway, I would choose for it to be this. As one text puts it, God is madly in love with you. It is time to discover how favored you have always been. Or as another text that is maybe my all-time favorite puts it, become a friend of God. God is already a friend of you. In other words, at the deepest level, beyond anything just about tithing, beyond anything in these 8 ideas today, beyond anything specific to money, I want you to know how loved you are. And to receive that love, to open up your heart and to let that love in above all else. That is the greatest receiving of all. That is the greatest miracle of all. And so I speak all of that over every single person who is a tither, who has chosen to tithe, even for the very first time with me today. And in this moment, we believe that we have received all of this, every promise, everything that has been spoken, and so we release. It is finished, it is done, it is finished, it is done. And I know that's a weird thing to say when I'm just about to go into some more prayer. Please don't think the episode is done. But as we go into this prayer, I do want you to feel that now that we have given, now that we have tithed, now that we have put it all in the hands of God, we are safe. And it is done. And we get to release. It is correct to release. It is a powerful choice to release. It is safe to release right here and now.